12th, 2024. We traditionally begin these meetings with an invocation and a pledge of allegiance. So I'm going to ask Reverend Rod Stone of the Community Presbyterian Church to come forward and lead us in an invocation. And then on deck will be a pledge by Mr. Porter Hogue. So, right, you can go right there, Reverend. Microphone's a little better.
Thank you. Let us pray. Loving God of us all, before we begin this business of this day, we pray that you will abide with this body as they address the matters that will be brought before them. May the spirit of discourse and interaction displayed here in this room witness to the spirit we want all the people in this fine community to live. Empower our leaders with the pursuit of good so that they'll turn and empower the citizens of this village with the pursuit of good. Help us all to listen with understanding and goodwill and speak with charity and restraint. May we find the ability to work together in harmony even when there's honest disagreement, always carrying with us a sense of welfare and care for all the people of this village. Would you wash our hands of malice and mean-spiritedness and cleanse us of all that distracts us from your noble intent? Would that we examine our motives, that they would be free of selfishness and selfish ambitions. May we search and know with a singleness of purpose, and that is to live with integrity and to serve. We give thanks for all who do serve, for all who work so hard for this village. May we always be grateful for what they do that enhances the safety, the character, and the essential services of this place in which we love and which we live. Be with us now that we will all accomplish your goodness here in this village. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. And I'll ask Mr. Porter Hogue to come on up here wherever he's comfortable and speak into the microphone. Ask everyone to rise, and you can lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. You see the flag right there, Porter.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Nice job. Porter is all of 6 years old, and he's at the Pinehurst Boys and Girls Club. Thank you again. Okay. Moving ahead to the reports. We'll begin, as we traditionally do, with the village manager. Jeff, do you have anything to report?
A couple of things I'd like to comment on. First is to remind everybody that we have our annual St. Patrick's Day Parade going on this weekend downtown Saturday, scheduled to start at 10 o'clock. Hope everybody has a good time. And the second is to let everybody know that our annual budget and SOP development is well underway. Our budget review committee will be working with all members of senior staff pretty much all week next week, reviewing the department level budgets, and then we'll have a couple of weeks of refinement based on what we saw before we're able to come back to the council with a pre-look at the budget and the SOP during their first meeting in April on April 9th. That concludes my report.
Thank you. I have a few items to mention. First of all, I just want to report that 3 more non-conforming use certificates were issued last week by the village to property owners who have short-term rentals. So the process continues to work. Those are applications that were received many, many months ago. It just takes time to go through them. So I thank the citizens for their cooperation and patience. The village has received over 3 dozen applications for the assistant village manager position, with about 2 more weeks remaining to apply. So those citizens and individuals who want to apply, please do so. You can go to our website. Thirdly, earlier this week, I got to provide some welcoming remarks to the North Carolina Economic Development Association. They had over 400 registrants at the Carolina Hotel, and it was all about economic development, and they were, of course, very excited to be in Pinehurst. And we have a lot of visitors that come here, as you all know. Last night, I had the distinct honor to attend, which I try to attend, the Property Owners Association of Pinehurst number 6 meeting, and it was rather crowded, And I am impressed with how organized they are, and they went over things as mundane as sidewalks and street lighting and other things regarding their dues. So it's a quite a community, and we can be very proud of how the citizens engage in that community. Last week, Barb Ficklin and I attended and participated in the formal opening and ribbon cutting of the newly named Carolina Vista Lounge. For many of you who have been in this town for a while, it used to be the Ryder Cup Lounge. It's now the Carolina Vista. It's still very nice. It's upgraded, and we got to be there when they cut the ribbon. So successful opening. And I wanted to point out that on our website, if you want to work for the Village of Pinehurst, you should know right now we have 6 different jobs posted there, from a recreation assistant to a facility supervisor to the streets and grounds maintenance worker. So like a lot of organizations, we are constantly looking to fill our ranks. We're fortunate because a lot of people want to work for the Village of Pinehurst, and a lot of people find this a very attractive community. And so I encourage those that are here, and those, particularly those who are listening or may watch this on video, to visit our website and see if there's something there that interests them. So I thank you for that. And now I'll ask Dr. Jeff Morgan if he has some comments.
Just a few, thank you. First of all, the Central Pines Regional Council did not have a meeting this month. They had, with all the representatives, they had an executive meeting. The next meeting will be in April, late April, for all the delegates there. They also are coming up with various committees in which different delegates will be part of, and we'll see how that all turns out. Appreciate the comment about the St. Patty's Day Parade. Also want to let people know that April 6th, so not too far along, we have the matinee races at the harness track. And if you have not been to that, I highly encourage it. It's a lot of fun. A lot of history here for Pinehurst. 1915, the track was created. The track serves multiple purposes. The main purpose on there is a training track for these horses, young horses, to go up north and do their races after the training is over. But the matinee races are actually qualifying races that they can use to go and qualify for different races up north, which is where most of the race tracks are at. I learned a little bit about the history on this and the use of our track, but one of the neat things about our track is that we're not down in Florida where it's really hot. We actually have some cold days, and so when the horses are training in the cold weather, at least cold for us, and they go back up north, they're already acclimated to be able to continue racing there. And we've actually had a Triple Crown winner come out of our horse track. We've had multi-million-dollar winners coming out of there. Even last year, we had a multi-million-dollar winner that came out. So tremendous amount of Pinehurst history associated with this. And the cool part about it is we keep making the history. And it's neat. So I highly encourage you to join us out there. I know the council will be out there, and lots of people from the village staff, and hope to see you. That's all I got. Thanks.
Thank you for those comments. Mr. Taylor.
Last week I attended, I'm not sure the technical name, it was the Technical Coordinating Committee of the SMPO, attended that meeting as they continue to get organized in some things that are actually very, very important as they begin what they're going to have to do over the next 2 years or so. I also, sitting in front of me at that meeting was the managing or supervising engineer of the Department of Transportation. I had a chance to follow up with him on the 2 STIPs that are currently listed for us, neither one of which I think is actually going to break ground before 2030. But one is Beulah Hill Road between Morganton and 211. And I've had some email traffic from people who live along there. And the other was the conversion of Morganton Road in 15501 from an intersection to an interchange. And I was happy to hear that that is not planned until 2030. Somewhere along the way, I'd gotten the impression they were going to do that later this year, and I thought, wait, they just finished that, but that is not true. I think that's it.
Thank you. Councilman Ficklin.
Thank you. Last week, I had the pleasure of meeting with Linda Parsons, who is the president and CEO of Moore County Chamber of Commerce. Learned a lot about some very impressive initiatives that they are undertaking. A lot of it focused on workforce development. It was a very interesting meeting. In addition to that, last week also, the Beautification Committee met, and I would like to, on their behalf, mention 3 initiatives. Only 3 of the many that they are involved in, but these are their priorities currently. The first is enhancing the Dundee Road area, including the right-of-way and circle at Pinehurst Elementary School. So this initiative may involve students and be even an educational event. Secondly, planning is underway for the 2024 Warren H. Manning Award. You'll be hearing more about that. It recognizes the creation of sustainable places that enhance the village. Publicity will begin at the end of March. In addition to promotional pilot articles, publicity will be expanded to include communication through Master Gardeners, Pinehurst Garden Clubs, Sandhills Council of Garden Clubs, and online accounts. The deadline for submissions for this is June 10th. Judging will be on June 20 and 21, and awards will be announced on June 24. And thirdly, improving the Bank and Hill area at the railroad trestle will be another initiative. And that's it for me. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Farrell.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. A couple things. I did attend the Planning and Zoning and Board of Adjustment meeting, and it's good to see them up to full staff. Now, again, we're looking for volunteers on a constant basis to fill our boards. The pay is not quite as much as the positions that Mr. Pizzella was mentioning, but it still is rewarding in any case. Dr. Morgan and I met briefly with the staff to talk about the comp plan development and administrative rules as far as possible updates, and I think we made some progress in that respect. Appreciate that. Thank you. And just lastly, yes, the St. Patrick's Day Parade is next Saturday, and being of Irish descent, I'd like everyone to attend. But more importantly, everyone becomes Irish, even the mayor on that day. So please attend.
Okay, thank you, Jack. Having completed those items, we'll now move on to a motion to approve the consent agenda. All items listed below are considered routine or have been discussed at length in previous meetings and will be enacted by one motion. No separate discussion will be held unless requested by a member of the Village Council. The items listed are the approval of Village Council meeting minutes for February the 13th, the regular and work session meetings, February 27th, the regular meeting and the work session meetings, and then finally, the budget amendments reports. So I'll entertain a motion or discussion.
A point of question.
Yes.
I had one very minor correction to the February 13th minutes. It is not significant at all. I could submit it to Shannon and not stand in the way of.
All right. Are we okay with that? I don't see any problem. Okay.
When you say very insignificant, is it and or something like that, or
No, they.
Changing the name of the village?
They misstated the name of the high school that was holding the meeting. They said it
fair
was.
enough, no problem.
Okay. Thank you, John. Okay. Having said that, do I hear a motion?
I move to approve all the items listed and considered routine in the consent agenda.
Second.
Hearing a motion in a second, accept that as affirmative from the council. Thank you very
Aye.
much. All right. Let us go to the proclamation of Arbor Day. Now, Arbor Day, I think if you're like me, you learned about this, I guess, kindergarten or first grade. We were always talking about Arbor Day. So let me read to you a proclamation that we will be adopting, we hope, in the next few minutes. Whereas in 1872, J. Sterling Morton proposed to the Nebraska Board of Agriculture that a special day be set aside for the planting of trees, and whereas this holiday called Arbor Day was first observed with the planting of more than 1 million trees in Nebraska, and whereas Arbor Day is now observed throughout the nation and the world, and whereas trees can reduce the erosion of our precious topsoil by wind and water, cut heating and cooling costs, moderate the temperature, clean the air, produce oxygen, and provide habitat for wildlife. And whereas trees are a renewable resource, and whereas trees in our village increase property values, enhance the economic vitality of business areas, and beautify our community, and whereas trees are a source of joy and spiritual renewal, and whereas Pinehurst strives to be recognized as a Tree City USA by the National Arbor Day Foundation. Now therefore, I, Patrick Pizzella, Mayor of the Village of Pinehurst, do hereby proclaim April 26th, 2024 as Arbor Day in the Village of Pinehurst, and urge all citizens to support efforts to care for our trees and woodlands and to support our village's community's forestry program. Further, I urge all citizens to plant trees to promote the well-being of present and future generations. In witness, therefore, I hereto set my hand and cause to be affixed to the official seal of the Village of Pinehurst on this 12th day of March 2024. So we are now part of the Arbor Day Hit Parade. Is there a motion for us to adopt this proclamation?
I would move that we adopt the Arbor Day proclamation.
Second?
Second. Hearing a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So adopted. Congratulations, Pinehurst. That ends the consent agenda. And now we move on to consider Resolution 2402, honoring the service of Miss Lydia Bosch as Treasurer and Council Member of Pinehurst, North Carolina. I'm going to ask former Councilwoman Bosch to come forward, and Dr. Morgan, if you can take the lead and go over that proclamation so everybody here can hear
My
the feelings
pleasure.
of the village.
Thank you,
Come on
Mr.
forward.
Mayor. I hope you all listened to the invocation by the minister, because I think he was talking exactly about the spirit of what needs to happen here. I'm summarizing here for you, sir, but effectively is serving with having a presence for integrity and service. And that is exactly what Ms. Lydia Bosch has done, and I think it's very important that we recognize not just her, but anybody who has been serving in our community. So, sorry about the glasses here. Resolution 24-02, resolution honoring the service of Ms. Lydia Bosch as Treasurer and Council Member of Pinehurst, North Carolina. Whereas the Village Council of Pinehurst, North Carolina wishes to acknowledge and express its appreciation to Ms. Lydia Bosch for her dedicated service to the citizens of Pinehurst as Treasurer and Council Member. And whereas Ms. Bosch served the Village of Pinehurst as Treasurer and Council Member from December 2019 to December 2023. And whereas Ms. Bosch dedicated her time, knowledge, and abilities to the village and provided thoughtful consideration to all matters. And whereas Ms. Bosch was instrumental in Council's effort to improve the village's relationship with the National Park Service and in solidifying the status of the Village of Pinehurst National Historic Landmark designation. And whereas Ms. Bosch was a key partner in negotiating the development of the USGA Golf House, Pinehurst facilities, and the establishment of the Village of Pinehurst as the first U.S. Open anchor site. And whereas Ms. Bosch played an integral role in notable projects such as the acquisition of the Gibbon Memorial Library and Tufts Archives. And whereas Ms. Bosch actively participated in the formalization of the Neighborhood Advisory Committee and served as the council representative on the Bicycle and Pedestrian Committee. And whereas Ms. Bosch contributed to the development and adoption of the Downtown Amenity Plan, 2023 Parks and Recreation Master Plan, 2023 Stormwater Management and Master Plan, and Village Place and Pinehurst South Small Area Plans, and Form-Based Guidance Plans. And whereas Ms. Bosch was and continues to be a strong advocate for the community of the Village of Pinehurst. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the Village Council of Pinehurst, North Carolina, in a regular meeting assembled this 12th day of March 2024 as follows. Section 1, that on behalf of the citizens of Pinehurst, the Village Council expresses deep appreciation and gratitude to Ms. Bosch for the gifts of time, ability, and commitment in carrying out her duties as Treasurer and Council Member for the Village of Pinehurst. Section 2, that a copy of this resolution be spread upon the permanent minutes of the Village of Pinehurst, and a copy thereof, duly executed by the Mayor and the Village Clerk, be presented to Ms. Lydia Bosch as a token of our gratitude. This resolution passed and adopted on this 12th day of March 2024. Congratulations.
Thank you, Jeff. Thank you, council. Thank you, Jeff. A few more thanks I'd like to pass out. First, where's Mr. Hoffman? Mr. Hoffman. I had always heard of Mr. Hoffman before I was on council, and then I got to meet Mr. Hoffman, and I want to thank you for coming to our meetings time and time again. I always look forward to seeing you, and I was disappointed if you weren't here. Second, I want to thank my friends who are here. You guys, your support and your undying, unwavering encouragement for the past 4 years has kept me going. And many of you heard me say, I couldn't do this without you, and it's true, I could not have done this without you. But I'm saving my best thanks for last, and that's for our staff. Staff, you made me a better council member. You explained to me what you were doing, why you were doing it. You helped me understand how what you were doing was for the best interest in the village. I really could not have done this without you, so thank you, Audrey. Thank you. Who all is here? Doug, Mike Apke, Alex, Angie, Matt, Jason, our brain trust, Jeff Batten. But also, I mean, this is for Glenn, it's for Mark Wagner, it's for Lauren, it's for Natalie, it's for Darren, every single person it's for Dana. Every person on this staff works so hard, and they're so dedicated to this village. So thank you so much for what you do to make this village work. Anyway, thank you again for this. It's a tremendous honor to have served you, and I will continue to work as hard as I can in the best interest of the village of Pinehurst. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Morgan. Full-service council member. Appreciate that. Thank you, Lydia, for your remarks. And now we will move forward on the next item on our agenda. This is a presentation by Moore County Public Works Director Randy Gould to update the council on future needs and plans for water and sewer here in Moore County. And I think you have a presentation and all. First of all, let me welcome you, Randy. We very much appreciate you making this effort to come here. The water issue, for lack of a better phrase, is on a lot of people's minds, and you have a terrific reputation as to being the person that you really want to hear for on this topic. So please.
Yes, thank you very much, Mr. Mayor, members of the board. We are going to talk about our water source update. There's been a lot going on. Certainly Pinehurst is by
Move the
far,
mic a little closer to you.
I'm sorry, can you hear it?
There you go.
Okay, let me move this on this side. Pinehurst is by far our largest customer base, so it's very important that we provide the needs that are for all of our customers. So today we're going to talk about our current water sources, projected necessary water supply. Our water supply is considered. We have wells that are proposed on Linden Road and future Carbonton Water Treatment Plant. And this is referenced from a water supply study which was prepared by LKC engineers that was just completed. So here's our current water systems. We have 10 water systems, and there they are all shaded purple. The ones that are connected or interconnected are Highland Hills, Vass, Eastmore Water District, Pinehurst, and Seven Lakes. So those 5 are the ones that we're looking at in a deep dive into with our water source. The other systems, the smaller systems, basically we purchase water from other entities. Okay, so here's our current water supply. We're fortunate enough to have 17 wells in Pinehurst. They produce about 100 gallons a minute each. The total volume is about 2.238, and that's our wells. We own them, we control them, and we feel very confident that will be a sustained long-term supply for us. Harnett County, we own 3 million gallons per day of capacity in their plant, so it's like we have our own 3 million gallon per day plant. They're operating it for us. Our contract expires 21/12. It takes water out of the Cape Fear River. We also purchase 1 million gallons per day from the town of Southern Pines. That is on a 5-year renewal, and the next renewal will be 2028. They get water out of the Lumber River. They have a water treatment plant down in Drowning Creek. And then we also purchased 600,000 gallons per day, or 0.6 MGD, from the town of Aberdeen, and that renews in 2025, and they get their water from wells. So that's a total of 6.838 million gallons per day, which is a lot of water, but you'll see the needs are at least that much. So this is a complicated slide. This was produced by LKC, and the red line shows our water supply. So we're just making some assumptions of when our current contracts with Aberdeen and with Southern Pines are going to end, and we don't know. They'll continue to sell us water as long as they have it, but they're growing too, so they have to look after their own resource. But they'll continue to sell us water, but we're just estimating that 2025, Aberdeen will no longer service with water, and there you can see the red line dips for 2026, and then would continue straight across, and we're assuming Southern Pines will continue to sell us water until 2033. The line on the very bottom, the dark blue line, is what's called average day demand, or average day supply. So that's our average day demand. So that is the amount of water that we're needing to serve those entities that I just mentioned from now until 2052. So you can see we're escalating it. We're counting on 3% growth per year, I think is the average that we're looking at. And that dark blue line is your average. Okay, the line above it, the lighter blue line with the dots, is counting on some industrial reserve. If we do have some water available, then you can bring in businesses, and that would be for those businesses in addition, above and beyond what our current growth rate is projected to be. So if we did want industries or businesses, then that would allow for that. Okay, the solid line, dark blue line up above that is your maximum day demand. So that's the critical number, really. Everybody thinks, well, we only use this much on the average, but that's not what we have to supply. We have to provide the water needs. July the 4th weekend, hadn't rained in 2 weeks. Everybody's watering their grass. That day, we need to have enough water supply to meet that demand. So that's what that dark blue line represents. And you can see it's quite a bit higher than the average day. And then the line above that allows for some additional industrial reserve capacity above and beyond that normal growth that you would expect. So you can see that the light blue line, the dark blue line, the top dark blue line intersects around 2029. And again, these are based on assumptions that these other water systems are going to not allow us to have water any longer. But we anticipate that to continue, but we're trying to be conservative in our approach.
Before you move on, the dotted sort of line, the one going vertically, what does that represent? I mean, it's obviously a delta between one thing and another, but describe
showing,
that.
Yeah, that's showing you the available supply. That says, I'm sorry, the red is the available supply. The dashed red basically is the difference between your projected average day demand in 2052 and your industrial reserve max day. And you can see it's almost double what your average day is. It's a factor of 2 nearly of what your average day demand would be to what your max day would be with some industrial reserve.
And this is only for the current and projected customers of the Moore County utilities.
That's for those 5 systems that I identified, East Moore Water District, all those that are interconnected.
Oh, okay.
They're using the same sources. That's why we identified all.
This is the cumulative of all those.
Yes, sir.
systems.
7 Lakes, Bass.
So you're looking out for everybody.
Well, for everybody that, yes, sir.
Okay.
That's
Doing
what
your
we have
best.
to provide water to from these sources. Yes, sir.
And I think some of those projections are based on assumed growth rates of customers.
You know, you could almost go back and look at our past growth, and this mirrors, continues that same growth rate. You're right. If more growth was promoted, the number would go up. If growth was stopped, then the number would be constant. We don't need any more water source.
But if you look at Pinehurst and our status as not fully built out, but approaching fully built out, we can't continue to grow. I think the growth assumption was something like 1.5% a year for Pinehurst. And we can't grow 1.5% a year forever because.
Yes, sir. This is not just Pinehurst. This is all those systems. So looking at the past growth from those systems for, projected forward is what that would be. So if they don't come to Pinehurst, where are they going to go? And we have to provide water to wherever they are if they're in our service area.
Sure.
Southern Pines and Aberdeen are looking at it the same way, I'm sure. But Vass, if that continues to grow, or the county, a lot of folks or the Eastmore Water District is growing as well, the customer base. Okay, next, we're going to look at water supplies considered. So LKC studied all of these water sources or potential water sources. The Drowning Creek, again, the Drowning Creek is in the Lumber River Basin. Southern Pines has a water treatment plant on the Drowning Creek. They pull water out of there. We talked very seriously with Southern Pines. They could expand their plant and provide us water in the short term, and then they would need additional water in the long term, and we would have to help provide additional source from possibly downstream of their current intake. That's a very long, drawn-out alternative, but that was not the one that has been selected by the commissioners. The Deep River is the one selected by the commissioners. We looked at Robbins' alternative. Of course, Robbins previously had a withdrawal out of the Bear Creek, which was tributary to the Deep River. And they had a water treatment plant up there, which is antiquated. And they have a reservoir. So there's some pluses there, but they're a long ways away. So getting the water from there to here would be quite a challenge. That one was not recommended. The one that is recommended is the Carbonton. It's off of Glendon Road, Carthage-Glendon Road. It goes up to Carbonton. We would put a water treatment plant or a withdrawal and intake on the Deep River at that location, and then pump it down to a water treatment plant somewhere near Carthage, and then pump it the rest of the way, treated water, up to our system in Eastwood. And I'll talk about that in just a minute.
So Carbonton is where we're headed.
Yes, sir. That's the recommendation from the commissioners. That's where we're headed. And again, this is a study phase. We haven't started designing anything or permitting anything, but that is the direction that we've gotten. Sanford was another one we looked at. Sanford has a huge water treatment plant. I think it's 36 MGD. It's pretty big, maybe 24. But they're looking at a lot of partners. They're actually piping water to the Triangle, and that treatment plant is underway. But it's already spoken for all the water that they had. Plus, they're a long ways away, too. Getting water from Sanford here would be much further than going to Carbonton and building our own plant. Harnett County, we currently have the 3 million gallons per day capacity from Harnett County, and they serve Fort Bragg and areas up toward the Triangle as well. So they have a huge system. But they expressed no interest, or they couldn't help us right now. They've already committed all their resources. And the infrastructure of getting it from their water treatment plant in Harnett County and Lillington to here, it's already maxed out, all the piping, the sizing. It would take another large transmission main all the way back to Lillington, which would be cost prohibitive. So the interbasin transfer, we're going to talk a little bit about that. The interbasin transfer rule, the Deep River, there's 3 basins in Moore County. We're not fortunate enough to have a huge river running through the middle of it like Harnett County is with the Cape Fear River. We have the Deep River Basin, which is tributary to the Cape Fear River Basin. And then we also have the Lumber River Basin. So those 3 basins constitute our water supply area, service area in Moore County.
Is it true, Randy, that the intersection of those 3 basins is exactly in the center of Pinehurst?
I don't know about that. Let me see if I can go back. That might be true.
Got to be close.
Well,
Right across from the library.
no, it's actually, Seven Lakes is in all 3 basins. Seven Lakes has customers in the Deep.
Is that where the
Cape Fear, and
intersection
Lumber.
is?
But the Cape Fear and the Lumber it's really 2 basins, and Deep is a tributary to the Cape Fear. It's sub-basin to the Cape Fear. So the basin line between
Well, there's
Cape
an upper
Fear
Cape
and Lumber
Fear and a lower.
runs right down 211, pretty much. So Seven Lakes has got all 3 river basins in it. Interbasin transfer, that's very complicated, or IBT. It's the transfer of surface water across basin boundaries and not returned. And that's a big deal. You don't like to think about drinking or drinking effluent from wastewater plant that's been treated, but that's basically what it is. Uh-oh. I lost my feed. Well, we're done.
You don't get away that easy.
Randy, before you move on from interbasin transfer, is there not currently a state regulation that limits that to 2 million gallons a day?
Yes, sir. That's where I was getting to.
There was a proposal last year to increase that, but it did not ultimately go through.
That's correct. And there's still dialogue about the short session, my understanding, of doing something with the interbasin transfer rule, but there's a lot of resistance to increasing that, just nearly increasing it from 2 to 5 or whatever that number might be. That was what being considered before. But I think they're going to look at specific cases and say this one makes sense to increase their withdrawal. It doesn't affect anybody downstream, but in our case, it does affect people downstream. We got Fayetteville, we got Wilmington, we got Brunswick County in the Cape Fear River Basin downstream from the Deep River, and they are very resistant to us taking water out of that stream in addition, and exceeding the number that's in the current standard. But what the state wants you to do is to take your water out of the surface water, out of the river, and return it to the river, so that downstream people, it'll blend with all the groundwater and the surface water, and downstream people can use that water. The concept is if you take water out of that basin, discharge it to another basin, then these people will be robbed or starved of the water source that's naturally occurring. So that is the interbasin transfer. But you can offset that by returning the wastewater effluent back to that same receiving stream or water source. Groundwater is not regulated. Septic tanks count as returning it to that basin. So it's complicated again. So interbasin transfer is triggered by one of the following: your average day transfer of 2 million gallons per day, or your peak day transfer of 3 million gallons per day. So that's what they're going to look at, and that's what they're going to regulate. And you have to get an interbasin transfer certificate if you're going to exceed those numbers. Basically, you don't have to get an interbasin transfer certificate if you can go below the 2 million gallons per day average day or 3 million gallons per day peak day. But if you exceed that, and you have to have a certificate.
What's involved in getting a certificate?
You have to do environmental, you have to get blessings from the folks downstream pretty much, and that's going to be very difficult.
Does it happen on a rare occasion in North Carolina, or is it something?
Sure, if any interbasin transfer certificates have been issued, but they probably have. They probably have, but it is very, it's a very arduous process at best. Okay, from a positive standpoint, we are drilling some additional production wells along Linden Road, 2 wells on Linden Road. The one really right at the curve, the hard curve of the Bear property, we have a well, and then further down toward Foxfire Road is the Longfellow well. So we're just about to start drilling that. That's we're going to actually meet with the contractor and the homeowner, property owner this week, and get that project going. And we're also looking at some additional test wells along that same corridor. We may even be able to go down to the deeper aquifer. There's an aquifer on top of the bedrock, and then you can also drill the bedrock. So we're talking about doing some bedrock drilling as well to determine if there's adequate water there. We've gotten some positive vibes from our hydrogeologist. So we're looking at groundwater. It's the cheapest water you're going to get, and certainly we're needing water.
For those of us who don't live in Pine Wild, test well sites are included in the Pine Wild Agreement. What is that Pine Wild Agreement?
Yeah, we have an agreement where we have now owned the facilities at Pine Wild. You know, there was
just
a long
recently.
time where we operated it, but they still owned it. And there were some caveats in the original agreement. We worked through all of that, and I think it's to their advantage and to our advantage for us to own the infrastructure in Pine Wild, because they're looking at this new phase and all that goes with it. You know, we can't approve, we're not going to approve taking on any additional utilities that we don't own. That's just not the business we're in. So in that agreement, we asked for some test well sites that they would provide us as part of the future development that they do.
Mr. Gould, as you develop new wells in the area, does that decrease the productivity of the current wells?
No, sir, you have to space them at least 2,000 feet apart so that they don't influence each other. That's something the hydrogeologist, back before I got here, 2010, the village actually did a study from Groundwater Management Associates that explained all of that and recommended wells out in the Linden Road area.
So as long as they're 2,000 feet apart, we're good.
Yes, sir.
Got it, thank you.
I'm sorry.
The wells on Linden Road, does that mean that water will be available to development out in that area?
Well, our system is all interconnected, so it's not like this well goes to this area.
I understand that, yeah.
So, yeah.
But we're running, they'll be connected to a storage pipe, Bob, or a
Yes, sir.
storage tank,
It'll connect
obviously.
to our distribution system and the pipe stored in the well, in the tanks. And yes, sir, it'll be just part of our overall supply and distribution system.
Can we go back to well separation for a minute? I thought I remembered 5 or 6 years ago that the state legislature eliminated restrictions on separation. And the only reason I mention that is because a neighbor of mine went and sunk his own well.
Yeah, we used to have a wellhead protection plan. We had the best wellhead protection plan in the state, but the legal system, I guess, determined that we could not impose restrictions on private wells. So now they can drill around our wells and take the groundwater.
But the 2,000-foot separation you mentioned, that's something that you just enforced because practically speaking, you think that's better policy?
Well, no, the hydrogeologists determined that we needed to space our wells 2,000 feet apart. But, our wells are at 100 gallons a minute. The private individual wells are 20 gallons a minute on a good day. So,
We have abandoned some wells in Pinehurst, is that correct?
yes, sir. Yeah, we've abandoned some. We had some issues with some water quality. We had a gasoline spill that contaminated some of the groundwater, and we abandoned that well. We had, I think, some radium in the water. There were some things with water quality that we abandoned the well. We abandoned some wells, yes, sir. Okay, next, water supply alternative. So this is our Deep River Carbonton alternative. We're looking at 2 phases. Phase 1 would be 3 million gallons per day capacity. And notice how well that lines up with the interbasin transfer rule. So we don't have to have an interbasin transfer certificate. And you get an intake on the Deep River. Your raw water pipeline towards Carthage will construct a 3 million gallon per day water treatment plant and a new reservoir north of Carthage. Then a finished water pipeline to our existing system near Eastwood. No interbasin transfer is required. Looking at a lot of money, $113 million estimated cost. But, that would take you up until, 10 years from now or so with the demand that we've experienced, and if it's projected correctly. Then we will need another 3 million gallons per day, which is 6 million gallons per day total.
Before we leave
Yes,
phase
sir.
1, the $113 million estimated cost, how is that expected to be spread among?
Okay, the last line, the water rates are going to increase 11% next fiscal year. So we're going to have to increase water rates to
Next year.
accommodate that and build the fund. So, yeah, beginning July the 1st, we'll have 11% increase.
You're saying that you, in essence, have to raise $113 million via the way you price water today, not all in 1 year, because
That's correct. That's correct. Yes, sir.
What is the time? I attended, I think, the last Public Utilities Study Group, so 2 weeks or so ago,
Yes, sir.
and I think they moved to approve a 10% 10% study, if you will. So what is the timeline to work on phase 1? When would it actually stick a shovel in the ground if they continue, and how long would it take?
Well, I mean, that's a good question. We're looking at, on the absolute worst case scenario, we were showing 2029, 2030, and I think that allowed for some industrial reserve or something. So that's probably a very conservative number. We're probably good for 7 or 8 years, would be my guess. But, because we are drilling these additional wells and exploring that avenue. But you're looking at the next step being producing a document that can be used, a preliminary engineering report, to further home in on this alternative of the 3 million gallon per day plant, expandable to 6. And then also you start getting your funding in place. The commissioners are optimistic that they can get some support from the legislature. We just got legislature monies for Seven Lakes Sewer. So and there's other entities that are getting help from the legislature for a lot of these neighboring counties that have gotten funding that you've seen. So we're optimistic that we can get that, but you have to have your study, you have to have your 10% document, design document, before you can submit for that study, for that funding.
Let me go back to the 11% rate increase. Is that a one-time rate increase, or will it be followed by additional rate increases in the following years?
No, sir, we would expect to continue to 11% or thereabouts in the
Every year?
future years until we have enough bank to, and we have a financial consultant that does a rate study for us every year. So until we feel like we got enough bank to cover these expenses.
I think his projection was round numbers doubling by 2031 or 32, somewhere in that vicinity. Is that about right?
Yes, sir, I think you're right. I didn't put that on the slide, but he
That
is,
rate increase would be for current customers of Moore County Utilities, is that correct?
well, there's a thing called a system development fee. So developers pay a system development fee, and they
course.
complain about how expensive that is.
Yeah.
You go down and get a water tap, the cost of the tap's not so much, but the cost of the water promised for eternity is a lot more money. So that number's going up as well. So it is both, not just the existing customers, but, you know, if we didn't do anything, then Aberdeen and Southern Pines cuts their faucet off, we're still going to need some more water for those folks.
So does Aberdeen and Southern Pines, the citizens, are they going to be bearing a 11% increase also, or does they not do that because they have their own water source?
Now, this is just for us, but they increased their rates as well. I mean, I haven't seen any rates go down.
That's independent of you all.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, Southern Pines has surplus capacity right now, but as years go by, they're going to have another intake to supply anything above the capacity of their current plant. But no, this is just for our 5 systems. I can't speak on their behalf.
And so if they were to, I'm just pulling a number out of the air here, if they were to increase their rate 6% next year, is that going to increase your 11% for us?
Like I say, I can't speak for them. I'm not sure what they're asking.
But we bring in water from them every year still.
Oh, yeah, that's correct.
So we're
If
buying
they
it from
increase
them.
their rate, we have to pay it to use their water. Yes, sir.
Okay.
That would be on top of the 11%.
Correct, that's my point.
I wanted to be sure that was your point. That's I just.
It's, so we're talking 11%, the way I'm reading this, and correct me if I'm wrong, sir, is that's the basement level. This is potentially higher. And as we're going along here over the years, and what I understood you say was it's 11%, but then you're going to maintain that increase flat unless you have to go up more, and then you go up more. But it's not going down until you have the bank to be able to make this payment.
Yes, sir. That's very
Okay.
true. I mean, our water has been very cheap. I know people don't like to pay extra money, but compare it to the other bills that you pay, you know, your cable TV, your telephone, those other bills, it's still a really good bargain. But I know people hate to pay extra. I hate to pay extra.
Go ahead, John.
And a couple of things. Some of this, if not a lot of this, is predicated on the estimated growth in population in Moore County.
Yes, sir.
And if that turned out not to be 70,000 people by 2050 or whatever the exact number is, then either you may have built more capacity than you need, or that gap that you showed on the first slide would be less.
Yeah, well, we know we need additional capacity if Aberdeen and Southern Pine goes away. So what you would do, you could delay phase 2. That would be the advantage of that.
But
If we had no additional growth and we just had to replace theirs, then you could delay phase 2. There's no time set for phase 2 begin.
The growth
have to
isn't going to
monitor
be
your
zero,
growth.
but I'm personally a little skeptical of kind of extrapolating these numbers out for 25 years.
You have to,
we'll
you have
see.
to take a stab at it, you know. So-
You have to be ahead of the curve. You can't build it tomorrow. You have to build it 5 years in advance.
Exactly.
At least.
Yeah, you're looking at 5 years probably getting this built. Maybe not. If we really had to fast track it, we could, but we don't think we have to right now.
And John, we're sharing this growth with Moore County. So it's not just Pinehurst. And so Moore County is not built out.
No.
Pinehurst is.
The 70,000 is obviously countywide, yes.
Yeah, I understand. And so again, as Mr. Gould just said, it's you have to put a mark somewhere as your estimate and trying to make a reasonable one. Sir, you mentioned that we lost a couple wells, and you addressed gas spill, you addressed radon with that. And two-part question. Number one, how big of an impact and risk is that for us in the future? And then number two, is there something that we can do from a council level or even in conjunction with other government levels to provide education and efforts in an environmental protection type of thing to protect these wells?
That's a really good question. Certainly conservation of water is good. We're paying a lot for this water, and people are using it on their grass. If we do go into a droughts condition, then we're going to stop allowing that. So those are things that will help the situation. And other than that, it is what it is. You got needs for water, and I can't really offer that there's anything specific that you could do to make that number look a lot better.
Yeah, I had a couple questions.
Isn't there some activity that could potentially jeopardize the water supply? I'm thinking of, we used to have a dry cleaning facility here, or a laundry, I'll put it that way. And that site was kind of a Superfund site, if you will, towards the end. That's the kind of thing that can jeopardize a well, is that correct?
Yes, sir. Certainly, groundwater contamination would be a huge concern. And
Type of businesses could have an effect, and that
PFAS,
comes down to usage and so forth.
you read about PFAS in the water, that's a huge impact. Thank goodness it can be removed, is my understanding. There's some other water systems that are removing it, but all of those things have a play, and certainly a dollar amount that's shown up there, if we had major removal expense of groundwater cleaning or surface water cleaning, that would affect the cost as well.
It's probably too much to go into for this presentation, but I will tell you that I'm certainly interested in any ways that we can provide education, provide cooperation with our staff in ways to both conserve water, as you mentioned, but then I'll use the term preserve water from these contaminants or anything else that behavioral-wise, not just the consumption, but other types of behavior that contaminate it or somehow put us at risk of losing wells.
I would agree with that. There are things we as a community and as users can do as soon as possible, so to speak. And conservation is certainly on top of that list, and as well as do no harm to the wells we have and other aspects there. I have a couple of questions. What are the number of customers for Moore County Public Utilities? How many do you have?
We have about 18,000 customers.
So we've got 18,000 customers that you have, but there are 100,000 residents or people in Moore County. So when you do the math about that 11% fiscal year increase and steady increase, is Southern Pines and Aberdeen, as two examples, are they not in that math that's projecting the growth? Because the growth rates are projected are very significant, almost 75% over the next 26 years or so, and I'm a little skeptical about that. I'm sure we're going to have growth. I don't know if we're going to have that much, but I am curious now how you all calculate that for the needs for the 11% rate hike, when what I think I heard you say is that Southern Pines and Aberdeen are not going to be facing that rate hike.
No, unless they're building something. Aberdeen, I know, was looking for wells, so I know they have some additional capital costs. Southern Pines spent a lot of money on their water plant and their reservoir, so they're probably good for a few years, but their water rates were higher than ours, I believe. But, as far as I know, there's nobody managing, all the municipalities and the county. They're looking at outside the municipal limits,
So
inside the municipal limits, but nobody's really managing all of that. So here's
Pat,
where
just
we
for-
want the growth to be, or
Yeah.
here's where it's
well,
going
let
to
me just, of your 18,000 customers, how many of them are in Pinehurst?
I want to say 11 or 12,000,
Okay,
11 or 12,000.
go ahead, John.
Just as an example, CCNC, although obviously Pinehurst address, gets their water from Southern Pines. They do not get the water from Moore County.
Right.
That's correct.
So they would not pay this 11%. They may pay something else based on what Southern Pines decides
They
to
pay
do.
double the rate of Southern Pines, CCNC, my understanding.
But the other side of the equation, which is the septic side. I know you didn't address this, not part of this presentation, but that's equally important for development.
So
Give a broad overview of where that's going.
we don't really have any involvement in the septic, Moore County Public Utilities or Moore County Public Works. But from our perspective, a septic tank out in the county, you know, it's not entered into our interbasin transfer calculations. It's, as long as the lot can handle it.
Well, I'm not talking about on-site septic, I'm talking about utilities, septic system.
What your question is.
Well,
Wastewater treatment.
Who manages the septic system on the other side?
Wastewater treatment, Randy.
Water treatment?
The wastewater treatment plant? Or
Yes,
Oh, okay. Yeah, we manage the wastewater treatment plant.
that's where I was going. I was using the
Okay,
wrong
I'm
word,
sorry.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, when I heard septic tank.
Yeah, I know, you were thinking of tank.
Septic system. Yeah, we handle the wastewater treatment plant. We get, and I could have brought a slide there. I'm sorry. I was thinking about the water. But we take wastewater from Carthage, Southern Pines, Aberdeen, Pinehurst, and Vass. That's pretty much it.
So does all this
It all
growth,
flows down to Aberdeen and discharges into the Drowning Creek. So you got transfer, interbasin transfer going on. It just doesn't reach that level that it requires a certificate.
so providing more water facilities and locations, are we going to provide wastewater treatment facilities in the same location? And is the dollar figure represent that, include that, let me put it that way?
Well, for phase one, we don't require any interbasin transfer, so we're not looking. Phase two, you would have to look at either returning the wastewater back to the Cape Fear River and building a wastewater plant up there, or piping your wastewater from Ador up to the Cape Fear River Basin.
Randy, I think what Jack is referencing is as future development takes place, that this water supply is supposed to accommodate what, I guess the assumption is there's going to be wastewater infrastructure put in at the same time that would pump it into your system.
Yes, sir. The wastewater treatment plant is at about a little over half capacity. We got 10 million gallons per day permitted flow, average day. It can take up to 25 million gallons per day on a peak day. And we're about 5.5 MGD on an average month. So we've still got plenty of capacity down in our Ador wastewater treatment plant. We're not going out and running new lines anywhere except Seven Lakes, I guess. That's a new one. But we're really development driven. Developers install the water and wastewater in their development and then pipe it to us, and then we accept it and own it after that.
So that's not on the same critical path as the water supply
No,
issue is?
we have plenty of capacity at the wastewater plant right now. Yes, sir.
Aside from population projections, is there any other cost drivers regarding addressing this issue? Or is that the big cost driver?
Yeah, I mean, just the fact that we're losing our capacity, that's kind of what took us off guard. We didn't know Southern Pines and Aberdeen were no longer going to continue to sell us that capacity. That just happened the last couple of years. As a matter of fact, as a result of this study, we contacted them to get confirmation of their flow and long-term contract, and they said, no, we can't promise you. So, and I don't blame them. They have their needs too, and they're looking at the same curves we're looking at.
Other questions from council members? Jeff, do you have any other thing you want to raise? You know a good bit about this.
Like a big job with a lot of projections.
Yes, sir. You know, you got to think down the road and do the best you can. And your best guess is based on past history. And
Can't
say,
live
here's
without
what's
water,
happened in
that's
the
for
last
sure.
5 years. Here's probably what's going to happen in the next 5.
Right. Well, I think from, obviously, from Pinehurst standpoint, one, let me begin by thanking you because you filled in a lot of blanks, at least in my education about the water here. And I think probably for a lot of my fellow residents, we're 61% or so of your customer base. And so that 11% figure is the first time I'd seen that figure. Thank you for sharing it with us. It's obviously going to have
Adopted by the commissioners is what we're proposing
I understand.
with our fee schedule.
I understand, but it
A household budget.
right. But obviously that will have an impact on some of our other fiscal decisions now that we know that that's going to be facing our residents down the road here. I guess my only cautioning remark is that I think it would be useful if you did a couple of what I'll call alternative scenarios where the projected population growth is less than 75% over the next 25 years. Just so we get an idea of what if we just grow 50% over the next 25 years? What is that? How does that impact some of these projections? Because those are big numbers, and
Yes, Like I say, you got to do the phase one anyway. So then you can wait on phase two. That would be my answer.
What's the-
Instead of 10
what-
years from now, it'll be 20 years from now.
what's the cost for phase two? Phase one's 113 million or something?
I didn't put it up there because there's so many assumptions. It's either going to be another wastewater plant built up in the Cape Fear River Basin, or we're going to pipe our effluent. The number the consultant had in the study was about $80 million for phase two. But I didn't put that on because I don't think that's anywhere near set
So
in
you're,
stone.
so in 5 years or so, you would assess the need for phase two?
Yes, sir. Probably closer to 10, but yeah,
Which might need an interbasin transfer agreement.
could. Yes, sir.
Okay, other comments? No. Randy, Mr. Gould, thank you once again.
Yes, sir.
Thank the commissioners. This is obviously a big issue before them, and it affects, of course, our residents here in Pinehurst very significantly. So thank you.
We're very serious about it. We're going to make sure we have plenty of water.
Yeah, everyone in Pinehurst likes to take a bath. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Randy.
That was very helpful. Thank you, Jeff, for arranging that. We are now going on to item number 8.
Before we go too far, maybe,
Oh.
do we need a resolution to approve the Lydia Bosch recognition?
Yes, I was going to bring the
Did
same
not do
thing up.
one?
We read it, but we need to vote on it.
Oh, well, okay. I'll make the motion to approve the Lydia Bosch resolution praising her work on behalf of the Village of Pinehurst.
I'll go to say I move to approve Resolution 2402, honoring the service of Ms. Lydia Bosch as treasurer and council member of Pinehurst, North Carolina.
Second.
Second, third. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? No. It's now approved. Thank you for catching that, Jack. Okay, now we are on to more resolutions. Jeff Batten, you want to lead us into the resolution Lollapalooza here?
Yes, sir. We'll do so. The Pinehurst Brewery down the street here on Magnolia Road has for a number of years used what we all refer to as the ground storage tank property for overflow parking. There's about 20 parking spaces gravel spaces that they have. And if Shannon, you could pull up that map, that might be helpful to reference. It's at the bottom of the cover memo. Thank you. You can go up a little higher if you don't mind, please. So 300 Magnolia Road, if you'll scroll up a little bit more for me. There you go.
The
That's
blue outline
sufficient. Yeah, the blue outline is the territory we're talking about. Thank you, Shannon. So as you're looking at this, to the north would be the Pinehurst Brewery, and that's the parking lot that's still in the photograph there, the paved portion. 111 Power Plant was owned by the county, and the county had an arrangement with Pinehurst Brewery for the brewery to have about 20 parking spaces on that property. As you all know, we acquired that property earlier this year of 111 Power Plant Road, so we now own it, and we need to, or at least what's before us is a lease option for the brewery to lease that property from the Village of Pinehurst for a term for up to 5 years, essentially. But the way it is structured is the village has the opportunity to exit with 30 days' notice at any time, so that we preserve our maximum flexibility with the property that we now own. Anything above 10 years is considered a sale of the property, and we would have to open that up to like a public process in order to lease this space. And so 5 years stays under that threshold, at which point it would have to be completely revisited and a new agreement entered into if future council at that time chose to do so. The rate that would be paid to the village of Pinehurst was determined based on 2 lots that the village itself rents from private property owners up in downtown area. So we rent a lot beside the Pinecrest Inn, and we rent a lot, at least up through Friday of this week, a lot at the Maples Building, which is the building directly behind the theater building. So we averaged those 2 costs per space and applied that same number to this lot to come up with what we thought was a reasonable lease rate per parking space. So based on that, it's about $3,280 for the first year basis. We're going to have a interim period between now and the end of this year. When I say end of this year, I'm talking about the end of our fiscal year, June 30th. That would be prorated, and then a CPI adjustment would occur at renewal on July 1 of 2024, and then that would kick off the 1-year increments going forward. So we would always be on our fiscal year basis, just for tracking ease and ensuring that we sent invoices out, those kinds of things. So if y'all are in agreement with continuing to lease this space to the Pinehurst Brewery, we would need a resolution adopted by the council in order to do so.
Any questions?
This land is in theory not part of Village Place, but is right below where Village Place is, or is this actually in Village Place?
Part of Village Place.
It is a part of Village Place as a whole.
To the extent that a plan ultimately unfolds for development there, we can cancel this, I think, on 30 days' notice?
That's correct. That's why we structure with 30-day notice. They have to vacate at any point in time. We don't have to wait till the end of the fiscal year or the end of the lease.
And I think that the total number was predicated on like $164 per year per parking space.
That's what the average is that we're currently paying up in town for one lot at 19 spaces, one lot at 14 spaces.
Markets are what they are. That's like 40 cents a day. I was surprised, but if that's what the numbers are.
Yeah, I really
that's
didn't
the
know what
numbers
else to base it on other than that.
All right, I'll entertain a motion.
are. Go ahead. Enjoy.
I move to approve Resolution 2412, authorizing the lease of a portion of the Village of Pinehurst property located at 111 Power Plant Road to Pinehurst LLC and its subsidiary, Pinehurst Brewing Company.
Have a motion?
Second.
Second. Having a motion and a second. I don't hear any requests for discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None? Motion's passed.
Thank you.
You're leaving? Oh. Oh, okay. Well, someone's, there it is. Okay. I knew there had to be somebody coming next. Okay, we'll consider ordinance 24-06, amending the Village Municipal Code, section 94-14, temporary events.
All right, so at our last work session, we discussed several items associated with the U.S. Open. One of those was how we're dealing with these events and the requests that we're receiving for the temporary events during the Open. So we have in our PDO, the 94.14 is our temporary events section. So we have a few proposed changes for that. Shannon, how do I get to the red line? Should I just click on this? All right, oh, there we go. All right, so if we walk through this, and I'll be able to answer any of your questions. So there's 2 major parts. First, we're adding that events ancillary to the U.S. Open will be eligible for this temporary events permit. And then also we created a section here at the end that gives staff some criteria on whether or not to allow or not allow certain events that are in the village. So yeah, if there's any questions, or we can go line by line and discuss each of the changes.
I had one question.
Yep.
Thinking back to my days on HPC, when we were looking at proposed changes to our standards, one of the questions was we want to be sure that what we wrote was clear enough for staff to be able to evaluate yes or no, or if there was discretion, that they were comfortable taking that discretion. In paragraph 4 here, It's a little bit open-ended. I'm not for or against it. Does staff feel comfortable that, that we should delegate that to them, and does council feel comfortable doing it? I have no particular problem myself.
I mean, here
I'm
it just
comfortable.
clarifies that it is village staff. It would have been village staff anyway, and if it's not, if that line's not added, I think it would still be village staff that's making that determination.
What I'm saying is that, community-wide significance and benefit is sort of open-ended. As long as you're comfortable, I have no problem.
Yeah, I'm comfortable with that.
I have no problem with it.
Down to 4B.
Yeah, so just, we made it clear that the appropriate village departments, rather than listing them all out. Here, for off-street parking, we just made it clear that the adequate parking must be available, but that we could include other parking options like shared parking, other parking in close proximity, and/or shuttle services. So that's something we kind of discussed last time.
And in paragraph 6, is there a formula standard that allows you to, I mean, I'm thinking back to 2014, and on either Friday or Saturday night, there were a lot of people out in the street. I don't know how you would have calculated what is adequate there.
Yeah, so we'd base it on what the PDO currently says for a like use. So if it was a hospitality tent, we'd keep that similar to what a restaurant would be. Moving down, the section C is the portion where we're talking about where we as staff would have some criteria on whether or not to allow an event. So when there's numerous events and we think there may be too many that be competing and cause a problem for the local community, we gave these 4 different reasons why we might be able to deny it. So one, if they have previous performance of similar activities with the village, they have they have demonstrated ability to produce a high quality event. They can mitigate the problems better than maybe another potential event. And then if nothing else, we'll give deference to first come, first serve. We'd also take into account if they had poor performance with this in the past. We take into account if it's not compatible with our community standards and norms. So if it's an event we don't feel is appropriate for us. Also, we would include if there was an extraordinary strain on village resources, time by village staff, or us closing roads, things like that. If it was excessive, we wouldn't allow it. And we'd be able to, based off of if it's disruptive to neighboring uses, we could also not allow the temporary use. So that's the summary of the changes. Any questions on that?
Some of the provisions are probably rightfully so, subject to interpretation based upon the event that's scheduled and what's provided as far as the description goes. For example, off-street parking is adequate. I mean, what does adequate mean? I mean, don't we have numbers of vehicles or parking spaces per event, depending upon the number of people that are planning to attend? Or do we have any objective measurements for that?
So similar to what John was saying with the restrooms, we based off of our PDO. But with the temporary events, it gives us a little more latitude that we could include, if there's general parking in the area, or if they wanted to provide a shuttle service or something like that, we'd have a little bit more flexibility. But generally, we would follow a similar use in the regular PDO.
So you'd be able to make a judgment call, but you at least have a document to reference to as to type of parking required for restaurants. And
Yeah,
other type
so
of
for a
events.
restaurant, it's 1 parking space per 3 seats. And so we follow something like
So
that.
there is some objective way to at least get close to what an adequate is. Okay, I think that's important to have a objective measurement.
Yeah.
Okay.
I actually like the way it's worded on paragraph C. I think it kind of meets well, not kind of, but it meets the idea that allowing the village to take advantage of certain events, but making sure it's not the Wild West out there. We have to have some regulatory back on this to keep us from folks going crazy with it.
Yeah, and that's what we discussed at our last meeting, that we do want these types of events, especially during the US Open, to make it a success for our business community, for the Open in general. So they want to come back every 5 years. But we also don't want it to get too out of hand and have, roads closed, and so you can't even get around, or so many parties that it's not a pleasant experience to be downtown.
The last thing I'll say on there, just living document, we find out that it's not working well.
Certainly,
coming
this
back
can
and
be
amending it.
amended, and, come July, we may want to change some things, so we don't have to deal with it in 5 years.
And this is necessary in some sense in order to separately create the temporary social districts? Or to put maybe guardrails around that?
It's not necessarily tied to the social district, but it certainly helps any events that want to be held within the social district.
Anything else?
The same comment on restroom facilities, they're adequate.
Yeah,
I
right,
assume there's a way for you to kind of figure out what's adequate and what's not.
yes.
We've had enough experience with large events, reasonably large events, to understand that.
Entertain a motion?
I move to approve ordinance 2406, amending section 94.14, temporary events of the Pinehurst Municipal Code.
Second.
Discussion? Hearing none. Motion and second. Adopt. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, on to the next one.
Okay, also last time we talked about a couple of temporary ordinances. So we have a parking one and the social district. So parking, we discussed what the challenges were. We want people parking in the right places and not in our downtown and not in our neighborhoods. So this was the solutions that we talked about last time. I did on there add at the end a $50 fine for deterrence, which was discussed. Here are the prohibited parking areas. I think maybe rather than go through the whole list, we can just look at the map. And then here's the 3-hour parking. One note, that first one, Cherokee Road, is already one of them, but it's only a 1-hour parking limit. So we're changing it to be consistent. So right in front of the library, technically you can only park there for an hour. We're just going to make it consistent everywhere, be 3 hours during that time period. All right, so here's the map. So the green is the 3-hour parking. We'll say magenta is the new prohibited parking, and it's hard to distinguish between the two, but there's also like a reddish orangish one. Those are already prohibited parking areas in the village. One area that's kind of, you may want to draw your attention to is here on Magnolia. So right here next to the intersection with Chinkapin, we have some dedicated parking spaces. So that's 3-hour parking there. Along here, there's some, it's posted as parallel parking. It's like bluestone parking in front of homes. So I did not put that in the prohibited area because I figure people are parking there already. It's probably needed for those homes. I'm sure they're used to parking there and that they wanted to keep that as available parking.
Their own cones out,
Yeah, they could do that.
South Philly.
But then based on feedback at our last meeting, we did add the rest of the neighborhood over here between the downtown and Carolina Vista right here, as well as around the Village Green. So any questions on this?
Yeah, in the Cherokee Road East, the block between Laurel and Palmetto, in the past, having lived in that block, they have posted up tape so that people can't park right in front of your house. I don't see whether that's indicated here or not. I wondered why that was left off, that one particular block.
Yeah, so actually that's another good point. So this area also had a lot of bluestone, like dedicated parking areas. I didn't want to prohibit parking there for the residents that live there, even though it's, because it is a regular parking spot. We didn't want to prohibit regular residents from parking there.
But will that be taped off, or will that be open season to someone from Raleigh who happens to wander down there and wants to park?
Yeah, so right there, the regular bluestone, we will not rope that off because we want it available for the residents that park there, that normally park there on a day-to-day basis. if you're telling me you wanted it prohibited, we can certainly do that.
It's,
The residents have to decide that, tell you the truth.
there are three of us, and I'm one of them,
Yeah.
That's true.
and three on the other side, but it's sand on one side, there's a little bit of bluestone on the other side, but it's a practical matter.
So are there any alleyways that are not deeded to the property owners
Yes.
in this environment? And should those be also included in the non-parking?
Prohibited parking. I'd have to research that a little bit to see which ones are. I mean, there's obviously alleyways in here, but
There's
I
lots of
don't.
alleyways,
Yeah.
but some are deeded to the property owners and not our say. But I think there are some alleyways that may be village property.
I'd have to double check. I don't think there's many, if any.
Spur Road.
Spur Road.
Spur Road would be one, the alley behind Cherokee Road would be one. Between Cherokee and Everett.
Yeah, there are some.
I don't think that is.
Between Cherokee,
I know where my property line is, and it doesn't go halfway into the alley, and nor does the house behind me. So I assume the village owns it, but I know that I
I
don't.
think that
Put
question just came up for another property owner about 4 or 5 months ago, and
Yeah. When we looked at it, we didn't believe it was ours, but we can double check
All I'm
these.
saying is that if within the area that we're designating as no parking, there are alleyways that the village owns, we should consider putting those in the no parking criteria also,
Yeah.
if it makes sense.
No, that does make sense to look at that. We can double check which alleyways might be appropriate for that and
Good.
which ones we own.
I'm curious as to what kind of signage you're considering putting up for all of this.
Yeah, so in the downtown area, we have, I believe it was 13 spots that are regular poles that we have that we can post these 3-hour parking signs on. And those are consistent with what was posted last time during the open. For most of the other areas, it'll be roped, and on that rope, we'll hang signs that say prohibited parking. And based on council's direction last time, we'd add the $50 fine comment on there as well. And then there may be other locations, for instance, along Dundee here, that's a long stretch. It may not be worth roping that entire thing, but we would post at regular intervals, no parking signs. They'd be more temporary ones like corrugated plastic, but that would be our intent to inform everyone of this.
All be enforceable, right?
Will be enforceable. I put in the comment that we are looking at potentially hiring retired police officer to be the daytime parking enforcement officer out there. So we're looking at different options to make sure that can happen.
do we think $50 is enough of a deterrent?
$50 is the maximum allowed by state
And
law.
that's
So,
If it's the maximum, it's someone else has decided what's a deterrent. Okay. Okay.
Out of the two roads, which I can't read, coming off of Dundee past the elementary school, the school is out by then, I think?
yeah, so there's a shuttle service that is dropping off and picking up USGA employees at Cannon Park. So that's why we wanted that prohibited parking. So I think it's Craig and Woods, I think of those two.
Right. Crest Woods, right. Medlin, I don't know if that's one. What is the elementary school going to be used for that day? Is that going to,
The USGA has it for parking.
they have it? Okay.
What does the resort think of this? Are they okay?
So I talked with Matt, their hotel operations director, and he is okay with that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you.
Looks sensible enough to me. Any other comments?
I move to approve ordinance 2407, amending Chapter 72 of the Pinehurst Municipal Code as it pertains to temporary parking in the village of Pinehurst during the 2024 U.S. Open.
There's a motion?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
It's adopted. Thank you. Okay. Doug, you going to stay in that chair?
Yep, we have one more temporary ordinance to talk about, the social district. So the social district is a relatively new law passed by the North Carolina general statutes and by the legislature. So it allows for consuming alcoholic beverages in a defined zone. We do have to create a time period when it's in operation. In the current draft of the ordinance I have from noon to 11 p.m. Certainly there's some ability to adjust that if you want to. But there's a lot of detailed requirements in the state law. A couple of them are that we need signage both around the perimeter and that each participating business downtown will have to have a sign saying whether or not they want people to come in with their open beverages. And we need very specific cups. They have to be non-glass, they have to be certain ounces, they have to have a sign on them of our social district, so there's a lot to be done with that. And then also the beverage must be purchased in the district, so you can't bring your can of Bud Light to the district, open it up and walk around with that. So we have met with the ABC, reviewed this proposed ordinance, they're good with it. And they've also offered to provide any training that we need to the local businesses, especially those that will be serving alcohol.
I guess I'll ask a question on the 11 p.m. Did you look at other hours to shut it down, and what were your thoughts?
Right, so state law says that it has to be between 2:30 a.m. and 7 a.m. You cannot have a social district. So we thought 11 p.m. might be appropriate in that, you know, things are probably slowing down in that period. Maybe midnight might be appropriate, or 10.
The question would be, what are the normal operating hours of the businesses where this might be appropriate? Either the restaurants, the Pinecrest, I'm not.
Yeah.
Open? During the open, do they intend to stay open later?
Yeah, right. Hopefully they are intending to stay open later. I can reach out to them and come back with if we need to change it, if they plan on staying open till 1 in the morning, that can be something we could discuss.
Well, yeah, I think 11 seems rather appropriate, to be honest with you. I mean,
I agree with you on that.
I was just wondering if it was, what were the
Not asking the
parameters?
businesses to close at 11 or anything
Correct.
like that.
No.
You can still go inside of the pubs or whatever and drink there.
Yeah.
This is about on the streets. And I have no problem rolling it up at 11.
Have a
I
lot of
think that's
signs.
fine.
Yeah, and we have, the next slide is our, the district, so it will be a lot of signs around there. Anytime you get to an intersection, that would be opening or leaving, so. As you remember, last time we discussed that we wanted the hotel in it, so we added that portion. And then we were sure to include these restaurants over here on McIntyre.
McIntyre, yeah. And we're not including the water tower behind the hotel.
Oh, yeah, I mean, maybe if you really, if that's the cool hangout spot, we could.
I was trying to figure out what that
Is that
was.
bringing up some youthful
Yeah,
memories there?
okay. And is the line across the Village Green, where is that? What is that?
So that's the property line between the village-owned
Oh,
property
and that's
the
our
chapel.
library and Tufts Archives?
Here's the library right
chapel.
here, and this is the village chapel down
Ah,
there.
the Village
That's not
Chapel.
that's not their parking, that's not their driveway, that's just an arbitrary property line.
Yeah, yep.
And I'm willing to bet Audrey is not going to let them in the library with it.
Yeah, you know, why not? You could party in the library all night. Okay. Questions or
I've
thoughts?
got another question, which is the same question they asked about the parking, enforceability.
Yeah, so this will be, well, ALE may have enforcement down here, but it will mostly rely upon local enforcement, so our police department. Again, this will be a tough thing to have someone always enforcing, but we intend to do our best to enforce it.
Okay, from my perspective on there, I think we need to spend a little time thinking about it. I got no problem approving this, but just like we talked about the intent before on the previous ordinance, want people to be able to take advantage of it, want you to have fun. I don't want buffoonery that's coming into our town when people acting inappropriately and that kind of stuff, so.
Yeah, no, agreed. Especially with other major golf events that have had issues, we
Yes.
want to make sure that we're not turning into that.
So who else do you want to check with? You said were you going to check with?
I can check with the restaurant owners when they would close, but if we're comfortable with 11 PM,
Yeah, I'm comfortable with 11.
Hey, and I think 11 PM to not be walking around, I think is
Yeah.
fine. If you want to go into any restaurant X and they're still open, that's great.
Okay, so we've settled on 11. Any other outstanding issue you need us to?
no, I think we're good with that.
Okay, all right. What's the consensus of the council?
I think we need a resolution.
I move, go ahead. Okay, I move to approve ordinance 2408, creating a temporary social district to regulate open containers of alcoholic beverages for the 2024 U.S. Open by amending section 13.05 of the Pinehurst Municipal Code.
Second?
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, it's approved.
Thank you.
Now, item 12, Quarter 2 update on the status of the FY 2024 Strategic Operating Plan. I see Matt. Welcome.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. It's nice to see you all again. As you mentioned, this is the Q2 update on the FY 2024 Strategic Operating Plan. And I was about to ask for it, but thank you, Shannon, for reading my mind. All right, so this presentation is a supplement to the larger report that you have in your backup as well, but which also includes some updates for future OPs and IAPs that we've discussed through the strategic planning retreat in December. But we're going to focus most today on where we're at, again, as of December 31st. So again, there's a little bit of time between that. Normally, this presentation would be coming to you in February, but just because of scheduling, it's coming to you now at the beginning of March. But as a reminder, what happens is at the end of the quarter, again, December 31st, and there are a few weeks where staff get together, pull this information, and then we meet usually at the beginning of the second month. So in this case, the beginning of February, to look through this, understand lessons learned, understand where we can be improving, where areas that we have improved, and areas that we can that we feel are successful. And then at that point, then we feel comfortable bringing this update to you all. And so as you can see, just at this high level on the screen, there are 6 initiative action plan items that were adopted as part of the FY 2024 Strategic Operating Plan. 5 of them are currently in progress and on schedule, and 1 of them is starting in the future. And that one is the retrofitting the current athletic fields with synthetic turf. Again, that's one of those weird ones where we've technically already started working on it, but there's no real action in FY 24, and the next action is planned for 25. So I've marked that is starting in the future. And then, as you can see, as a part of our initiative action plans, we include metrics and projections. And as you can see on the screen here, 3 of them have achieved their projected performance. 1 of them did not meet its projected performance, and 3 are undefined. And all 7 of these measures, I believe, I'm going to make this statement, I believe all 7 of them are annual measures. So again, you're going to be seeing those projections and whether or not we've met them throughout the entirety of FY 2024.
At the starts in future, is that because we flip-flopped the order in which we wanted?
Yeah, so, yes, sir, that's a good question. It's more that the next action item is starting in the future. And as I mentioned, we've gone back and forth saying, should we mark this as in progress and on schedule, but with no action? I thought it was more applicable saying in the future. So we're going to dive a little deeper into each one of these items. The first one is updating on the PDO. As you can see, this is marked as in progress and on schedule. And the next, task number 1, which is developing that RFQ, has staff looking to finalize that during this current quarter, in quarter 3. And then the next task, which is to review and recommend a consultant for you all, for Village Council, to review an interview, is currently slated for either Q4 of FY 2024 or Q1 of FY 2025. And as of right now, we're currently on that plan and on that schedule.
Just 1 second on the PDO.
Yes, sir.
Is it, I'm trying to think whether it would be more efficient if we, the staff and the council, sort of came up first with our thoughts on the PDO and then engaged a consultant rather than sounds like we're engaging the consultant first, and then we would be reacting to their work. Am I reading that correctly?
So I'd have to dive a little bit more in off the top of my head. I can't remember exactly the full scale and scope of this, but again, as it's currently laid out, it's that current updating of the PDO in its current form. So the idea, I believe,
I know that's a big assignment, so I'm
Yeah.
not,
Yeah, I think maybe what might be missing here is an opportunity to bring the draft RFQ to you,
Right.
because that will spell out the requirements that we're looking to have.
Maybe
The
that-
RFQ will define, to some extent, everyone's involvement in the process. Is that
What
correct?
things we want to accomplish. And,
Right.
Yeah.
okay, that, I'm fine with that.
Mhm.
Any other comments?
But this this update is not to incorporate actions of council that are not in it's to actually look at the PDO itself as more of a holistic document
Yes.
and
Bring it up.
reshape it a little bit.
Bring it up to
Bring it up to current
to
standards.
date. Yeah.
Absolutely, yes. And so I made a note as well. We can make sure to bring that draft to you all.
Thank you.
The next item is to implement a Metropolitan Planning Organization, or MPO, with the assistance, not wish the assistance, with the assistance from regional partners, in progress, on schedule. As you can see, we have there is a logo associated now with the Sand Hills Metropolitan Planning Organization. And this IAP is now marked complete in Q3. So I wanted to make sure, I know there's a little bit of time there, but as we've moved forward and as you all recognize that this is now operationalized and moving forward, so this IAP has now been marked complete.
Except I think maybe there's a
We might be
footnote.
taking a step back.
Yeah, okay.
That is,
More to follow on that.
yes.
Okay.
So, marked complete unless otherwise noted. The next item here is the relocation of the Public Services Complex, again, marked in progress and on schedule. The next task, which is to negotiate and complete the acquisition of a property if not using currently owned land or village-owned land, at the time of this update was currently in progress, and the due diligence of that potential property was completed in Q2. The next item, which is, again, that task number 3, is scheduled to be completed in Q3 of FY 2024. I don't have a specific update on that, but I do know that, at least as of the last time I checked, that we are still on schedule for this.
Maybe slipping a little bit.
Yeah, I think
Negotiations with the property owner.
the phrase due diligence there is sort of what we've done. It's not a joint due diligence with potential acquisition. So, just in progress.
It is in progress.
That's true.
It was on schedule at the end of Q2.
It was.
But the schedule is not to move it till fiscal '27?
Yeah, it's a few
So
years.
we have a little
We have wiggle room.
wiggle room here.
This is the item that is marked as a future or starting in the future IAP. This is the retrofitting current athletic fields. Again, as I mentioned before, there are no actions scheduled until FY 2025. And Pat, to your point as well, there is conversation that came up during the strategic planning retreat about which field would be next on that list.
Remember
So that'll be a part of
We'll
the
discuss it.
budgetary process. Yes,
Yeah.
sir.
And you may not have the answer to this, but I'm assuming the retrofitting we've done already on that one field has lived up to its expectations, and we're able to use it a lot, and we don't seem to have any problems or injuries or anything like that. No,
No problem.
Not that I'm aware
no
of.
problem. Okay.
Also saving a lot of water.
And we save water. Going back to your earlier concern on conservation. Very good, Dr.
I
Martin.
forgot the exact metric, but it was about 1 million gallons. Was it a month?
Everybody should have an AstroTurf lawn.
Yeah, we'll take that up during the PDO discussion. Okay.
So, and just as a side note on that, and I don't want to speak for Dana, and she can correct me if I'm wrong on this, but we do project in those off years where we're not building a cost savings that is a part of that. Again, about the maintenance costs and other costs that we save by that. And I believe we were pretty close, or pretty much right on target with our projections for the cost savings for FY 2024. So. The next item on the list is expand and renovate Given Library and the Tufts Archives. This is marked as in progress and on schedule. The next, the next tasks that are associated with this are associated within Q4, so that's why it's marked as in progress on schedule. As you can see in Q2, there were design schematics that were provided for review, and that staff was in contact with the Friends of the Library group, which have hired a firm to solicit those some potential donations. And so, as of, again, at the end of Q2, this is where we were at with that project. And then last, but certainly not least, when it comes to our initiative action plan items, is to develop and implement a consolidated multimodal transportation plan. That is also marked as in progress on schedule. That first task, which is to develop and issue an RFQ for consultants, is scheduled for Q3, which is the current quarter, again, that we are in. And there is still some discussion about how this project may tie in with the SMPO and that timing. So staff is still working on whether or not there is that connection and what timelines and deadlines may be associated with that.
So at the moment, you don't intend to issue the RFQ just yet? Or
So-
you do?
So it is slated for Q3. Yes, sir. So it is slated for, yes, but yes.
We got 3 weeks left.
Yes, sir.
That's right.
So I don't have an update on it off the top of my head, but yes, at least as of right now.
I think the linkage with the SMPO is a good one, and that's kind of what I'm asking.
Yeah.
Because with the SMPO maybe slipping a little bit.
Mhm.
Would we issue that if the SMPO was, shall we say, in limbo or having to take a step back? And proceed on that alone to get
I think
input from a consultant on
Yeah.
ultimately SMPO's plan, development, requirement horizons won't change whether we have to take that step back or not, so.
What do we anticipate in an RFQ of this type?
I would have to defer to the subject matter experts on that.
I guess my question, by issuing the RFQ, do we want to take steps as a village with respect to multimodal transportation in the village that may or may not have anything to do with what the SMPO ultimately comes up with? Because we could proceed on our own to do some things.
I would expect that what will happen at the SMPO level will be that they will take the plans that are on the shelf from all of the local jurisdictions that are part of the SMPO and make sure that they're all stitched together. So they're going to need our input in this format to figure out how to make connections.
Right, so we would then plan to go forward with developing some things that we will proceed or consider doing.
Right.
Who knows, but, okay,
It
thank
would
you.
not concern me if this slipped a quarter as far as issuing the RFQ, just because of the moving parts. But we can discuss more of it, but I don't,
We don't have to be in a hurry, I don't think. is what
yeah,
I'm saying,
that's what I'm saying. I mean, it's just little things that might make a difference as to what we want in the RFQ or what we don't, so.
Noted. Yes, sir. So that's the last initiative action plan item that's slated for FY 2024. And again, I know that you all have heard this ad nauseum now, but for those who may be listening new, those are usually those large scale, multi-departmental, multi-year, large amount of resources and time, energy, and effort projects. Those other projects and evaluations we call opportunities for improvements and innovations. And so I'm not going to go through each one of these unless you all would like me to. But just a couple of items on this first slide here. These are the 4 evaluations that are slated at the council level, OFI level. And the first one, just to bring to your attention, was the evaluation of programmatic opportunities with the USGA. This OFI was removed as part of the FY 2025 strategic planning retreat.
But, Matt, I thought in some of the documentation you provided, there was reference to a staff meeting with a representative from the USGA who actually had an idea about something to do. So whether it's officially in the plan or not, there are conversations taking place.
Absolutely, there are conversations that are taking place, yes, sir. But as an OFI, and again, if my memory serves me, during the conversation, during the strategic planning retreats, is what does programmatic opportunities mean, and what's the scope and scale of that? That was the decision of council was to move that from a council level OFI, remove that, and then to your point, if there are conversations that continue, then those can continue moving forward.
But because in some of the email traffic that we've all seen, that's been a topic that has been raised by people, So I'm happy to hear that that is continuing. It's a good idea.
Remind me, my acronyms are slipping. QSS.
Quarterly strategy session.
Thank you.
Yes. And that is the staff level discussion that happens, yes, sir. The other item that I just wanted to bring up briefly is to evaluate a process for improving communication strategies with businesses. This was a recent addition to the FY 2024 OFI list, and it came up during the strategic planning retreats. And as a reminder, it was a conversation that we all saw and had when looking at the survey results, the annual survey results, showing that there was a potential need and improvement around communication with businesses. And so I just wanted to report out that staff has met during Q3, specifically around this OFI, and are planning listening sessions over the next coming months with business leaders in the village of Pinehurst to try to better understand what those businesses could be looking for from us so that we can start to actually implement that going into FY 2025.
I'd like to pose a possible suggestion, and that is that at some point, we invite some of the business leaders to come to a council meeting here, and we can discuss firsthand with them what their thoughts are, on ideas they might have. Because right now, it's sort of, each of us sort of meet with a particular business leader or bump into one at an event, or it's catch as catch can. And it might be interesting to see what they might have to say. So I just throw that out there, and we can revisit that down the road here.
Yes, sir.
I assume that will
Yes, sir.
be businesses that are both members of the, I can never remember the acronym.
Yeah.
BPC,
Yes.
and
Yes.
those who are not.
Right.
Good.
Yes, I believe we have sent out emails for those meetings. I don't have the specific dates in front of me, but they are to those that have signed up through our business listservs to try to reach as many, as well as every other cultivated list that we have for Pinehurst businesses. This next slide here is looking at projects. So again, the first ones we had 4 evaluations. This is looking at projects. We have quite a few more projects, but I will just call your attention to a few of them here. The top item is to provide world-class execution of plans for the 2024 U.S. Open, and the staff is currently working with the USGA to finalize their role, specifically around the U.S. Open experience downtown. Obviously, as a part of the conversation, even this evening, we were having conversations regarding what downtown may look and feel like, but the specific activation of downtown, those conversations have continued to continue to happen with the U.S. Open during Q2. The other item, the construct sidewalks, walkways, greenways, and/or bike lanes and paths, I think is about 4th from the bottom there. As of this moment, I just want to provide an update. Juniper Creek Road is still in the design phase. It has not yet broken ground, but they are still moving forward with that one.
That was on the mind of the Pinehurst Number 6 Property Owners Association last night. They weren't being critical or anything. They're just wondering what the status is, and so they're watching it.
Understood, yes, sir. And the one underneath that, the implementation of stormwater improvements. For Q3, I just wanted to point out that we did put in that there are several other projects currently scheduled for Q3. Specifically, there are bids that are supposed to be going out and being received in Q3 for that Magnolia Road drainage project as well. And then the last one that I wanted to bring up was the Village Place streetscape enhancements. The items that were on the list, looking again, and I know, as you can see on the screen, that 4-way stop at Chinkapin and Magnolia, downtown stormwater projects, conversion of that angle parking, as well as the additional parking beside the theater building, have all been completed. All are items that are still left to be completed within FY 2024 to finish out this area of streetscape enhancement.
Yeah, let me ask, why do we say FY 24 to 28 there?
Yeah, so this is one of those OPs that's in every year. So there are streetscape enhancements this is a catch-all term, a catch-all OPI, and so for each year there are certain projects that are assigned to be completed within that fiscal year. So that's why it's 24 through 28. It's not specifically those items.
Not just the downtown amenities.
Okay, yeah, maybe you could add a sentence to that so we're reminded about it. Because when I first read it,
Downtown
I
amenities
thought,
plan, yes.
gosh, we knocked this off before the year's out. So okay.
Understood.
Second thing, I was contacted by one business person downtown with the spots disappearing or at least ending there behind the theater building, which was a concern. I guess they have people who park there, or some of their employees from these businesses. I was able to tell them about, we're going to be adding 5 spots. I don't know how many spots we lease, but we're going to be adding 5 by the theater building. And so that sort of calmed down the concern. I told them it wouldn't be happening until after the open, but the timing's working out very well here, so that might help us there.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Just one question, on the Highway 5 STIP project, what part of staff or who is spearheading that?
That is a good question. I'm going to turn to, which part?
The Highway 5 STIP project, staff had initial contact with DOT. I just love that, I had a impromptu conversation with
Had a
Dagberto Pozos.
conversation, their consultants reached out to us, second quarter, last fall, to get an understanding of what our preferences were with regard to bike and pedestrian facilities along that corridor. Just no discussions further than that have gone on yet.
I had a ad hoc conversation about more traffic-related things, and I'd just love to update whoever it is who's the right person on what they were thinking.
They're not there yet.
Okay, fair enough.
Very last item,
yes, sir.
not yet started. What does starting look like in that issue in general? Street lighting comes up in all our surveys. So what is it? What will starting look like? So, and when do you think it might occur?
Yeah, so I'll speak generally, and if I feel Jeff Batten breathing down my neck, then I'm saying something wrong. So the last discussion that we had was around looking at potential intersections where certain lighting options would be available, and it would be both warranted, but then also that would be useful, et cetera. So at some point I think that was the last point in which we had the discussion, was trying to find those applicable intersections for, I think it was Cobra lighting and different lighting options that were there. I don't know whether or not we've moved past that, but I didn't. Jeff Batten is shaking his head no, we have not moved past that.
Are we going to sort of have our 10 best spots to put lights or street lamps? Or is that how I'm trying to figure out how we get to some sort of success or at the end. Oh, here comes Jeff Batten to the rescue.
And my impression from some individual conversations is there's dissatisfaction on both sides. Places where people would like to see them and places where people do not want to see them.
So, yeah, trying to find that balance. Yes.
Jeff.
Yeah, and that's correct as far as the dissatisfaction. Some people want more, some people think we got too much. Setting that aside, we have a streetlight policy that stipulates where streetlights can go, and if we've strictly followed that policy, we would be able to identify within each neighborhood where those street lamps could go. Then at that point, in past, we had neighborhood meetings and tried to discern, is this too much, not enough? Here's what it looks like if we go a more of a maximum streetlight approach all the way down to what's kind of a minimum approach. We have gotten away from that in terms of having those meetings, but we could still do it that way, or we could just identify those locations and then show to council what that looks like based on the policy itself.
So, Jeff, what would
Depends on how y'all want to go.
what does the policy look like? Just as a representative sample, does it say like four-way stops should have a
Four-way
street light or
stops of main collector roads.
Okay, so we can talk to the community if we're
Yeah,
asked.
so it
you
could
know.
be like, on the lakeside, say Burning Tree and Lake Forest. That would be an intersection of two collector roads.
Okay,
But not necessarily, say, Sugar Gum and Lake Forest would also be Interceptor
Right.
Road. Escaped me right now, but
so I
Pine
mean,
Vista and Burning Tree would be another collector road intersection, so.
from
we're
time to
looking at the
time,
major
people
roads.
ask, hey, why don't I have one here? And we can say, we have a policy and it reflects this. I'm glad we
If we
have.
wanted to roll that out. Now, we have not, the policy is what it is, but we have not implemented the policy across the
I got it.
village.
Yep.
We did in Village Acres, but we have not in the rest of the
Right.
community.
I remember that, yeah. Okay, good.
So,
Appreciate it.
I think the ultimate direction we need is, do we want to go ahead and use the policy as the basis and council makes a determination that we want to move forward on that? Or are we going to go back to the neighborhoods and have those that are in favor of street lighting over here and those who are not over there, and then
The answer is
whoever's
yes.
got more seats in
Yes to both of
the
those.
building gets to get their way? I mean, I don't know.
Good luck.
And then there is the last component of that is the 4 people that live on that intersection, who are
Right.
most impacted.
Correct.
And in past, we have, like in Village Acres, we talked to those 4 and said it would be on this corner because this is where the power is. You know, are you okay with that?
Dining in my bedroom at night kind of thing, yeah.
Right, so it's a sensitive subject from that standpoint.
Jeff, and remind me, so it's also, we budget $10,000 a year towards this, and so about, do we have approximate how many that we could, even under the current schedule, do each year? following that?
There's a specific distance by which we would not pay anything for a streetlight, except for the monthly charge. Once you exceed that distance, and I can't recall what the distance is, but then Duke Energy charges the underground service to get to that particular corner. So in some instances, putting it in wouldn't cost anything. In some instances, it would cost something. If there's a bore under the road, it's like $750. At least that's their old fee. Don't know what it is now, but
This is not likely to be an area where a one-size-fits-all approach is going to work, because or people on one intersection want it or don't, and how do we know?
yeah. And then once you talk to those, this intersection, they kind of want it, and maybe this intersection they don't, but they both meet the policy. What's our position going to be? Are we going to let the 4 folks on the corner who are most impacted dictate a yay or a nay? Are they going to have veto power? And if it's so, is it 1 can veto, or is it 2 takes 2, or it takes a super majority and takes 3 out of the 4 that live there? So
All right.
Getting
yeah,
skills will be
it is
good.
not a simple just go out and put streetlights
I
in. And
understand.
that's quite frankly why it hasn't been done.
All right, let's
Understandable.
revisit this. I'm going to have to think about this for a while, and maybe bother you two to
I'd
talk to me at
suggest y'all
length
take
sometime.
that up in June.
Why is
After-
that?
after the
Jeff,
US
why is
Open.
that?
Because right after the U.S. Open.
All right. No streetlight issue before the open. Okay.
I have one last question on
Yes, ma'am.
this. We had talked about, this says for North Carolina DOT improving the traffic circle as complete. We had at one time talked about reducing the speed limit there, and that hasn't been done, so why is this complete?
Yes, so this was marked complete. Again, correct me if I'm wrong on my recollection of this, but it was because under what we currently have from the NCDOT, the 2 projects that they currently had were the improved signage and the bollards. And once that was done, there was nothing else that the NCDOT had within their scope of projects for the traffic circle in the foreseeable future. And so that for that reason, that's why we marked it as complete. But to the point of reducing speed limits, et cetera, I'll turn to see if we have any more.
I don't know that we ever got a clear explanation, but my recollection was that they declined to reduce the speed limit.
I think it's the way it's listed is appropriate. I think we can revisit the topic with them informally to find out more. That's all.
If I were a betting person, I would say that collaborating with the NCDOT to improve the traffic circle will be coming up for years to come.
But there is currently no step for it.
There's yes.
There's nothing under plan. They are not thinking about anything at them. Step.
Stip for it.
Yes, it is. 2030.
Oh, yes, 23.
Construction would start in 2030 right now.
Construction on what?
Whatever that future improvement to the traffic circle will be.
So
That undefined improvement.
Which is the same as the situation for Highway 5. It's undefined. We don't know yet.
all right, which is why we'll probably talk to them
Exactly.
at an appropriate
And
time.
since that's outside the 5-year scope, I think that's one of the reasons why we also marked it. That being said, I'm happy to answer any other additional questions you may have or defer to those experts that are behind me if I can't answer it.
Anybody have any other questions for Matt?
This does not require a resolution, it's just an update.
This is an update.
Thank you all so much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Matt. I would also mention, just as Matt goes away, in the separate meeting I had with him, I asked whether he could put down a more flow chart form, kind of how the STIP and the balance, and not the STIP, the balance scorecard and OVI would work, and I thought he did a very nice job with that. I think that was disseminated to everyone, but
It turned into quite a science project.
I will say that piece of it was more detailed than what I was hoping for, but which is not to say that I don't appreciate the level of detail. So,
Right.
Okay.
Need to build, it needs to be printed on like construction drawing size, you know.
Wall size.
I had to get a magnifying glass out to read it, yes.
All right. Item 13, consider the resignation of Mr. Jeff Sanborn, Village Manager, effective October 25th, 2024. Is this part of Angie's discussion, or is Angie later? You're later. Okay. Well, we have a letter of resignation from the Village Manager, effective October 25th, 2024. I don't know if we need a lot of discussion.
I
Question
think
is
we
it
also
accepted?
limited on discussion. but,
Excuse me?
I think we're also limited on discussion.
Okay.
With it, considering that it's a human resources thing. But I move to accept the resignation of Mr. Jeff Sanborn, Village Manager, effective October 25th, 2024.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
It's unanimous. Accepted. Okay, item 14, other business. Who would like to discuss other business? I'll start. I'll get specific. Dr. Morgan, anything you want to bring up?
Not at this time. Thank you very much.
Councilman Taylor?
Not at this time.
Jack?
Not at this time.
Not at this time. Okay. Other business. Well done. Comments from attendees. Okay, I have two there. I guess there's a list coming forward. And if anyone has not signed on to the list, they're going to be welcome to come up also. So let's start with the people who filled out the list. Okay. First person is Michael Schreiber, 2 Troy Court. Mr. Schreiber, you can sit if you'd like. Go right ahead.
I'm here on a couple things. First of all, you should have not received his resignation and forget it and run this village like he has in the past. He does it very well. My concern is your conversations that appear in the paper and a couple of tenants here is you're still mulling over the library. I don't understand why you can't come to an agreement on building a first-rate library for expansion, the village expansion. We got lots more land out there that's going to have more people and more usage. I just can't get it in my brain. I wake up at night thinking that you can squash it. This is a prosperous community. We are the #1 retirement community in the nation. And you guys are working on 8,000 square feet when the staff has recommended 11? What's wrong with you? Why can't you build a first-rate library to serve all the people in Pinehurst? I don't want to drive to the college to go to their library. Has anybody been there? How far do you have to walk from the parking lot to get to the library? And you're my age, it's an inconvenience. You know, somebody says there's no parking at Southern Pines. There's a parking lot behind the Southern Pines Library. We have none. I drove by today. There's 13 cars parked in the trees in our village green. Is that really what we want to do with our library? Come on, guys, get it together. Approve 11,000 square feet and give us a first-rate library. And in my thinking, I'm thinking about this village hall. The mayor at the time of Pinehurst was being accused of building the Taj Mahal. But he was really thinking about the future expansion. Now it's full in less than 20 years. Think about it. If you got to build for the future, not yesterday. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Schreiber. Okay, I saw some hands up. Is there anybody else who would like to speak and address the council? Please come forward and introduce yourself.
Thank you, Bruce Geddes. I'm at 232 Bowman Road in the ETJ. I read one of the attachments to your agenda this evening regarding OFIs or OFIs, as you say, and there's two. One has some strike-throughs on it with respect to the ETJ. It says, develop a comprehensive conservation plan for the ETJ. And during the fiscal year 2025 strategic planning retreat, the council directed staff to remove the strike-through language, which would be to preserve and conserve open space in and around Pinehurst and update zoning for Focus Area 1. I'd like to know exactly what that means. To remove language that says conserve open space. That concerns me as a resident of the ETJ. Further down, I think this might be a new OFI. Update the PDO and zoning maps to address planning needs for Focus Area 1. Focus Area 1, to my best knowledge, is the ETJ. That's where I live. So when people start drawing maps of my neighborhood and considering the word zoning, what exactly does that mean? And did council direct staff to do that? Because that's what this says. That was not in the last presentation, but I want to call this to your attention. Please take a look. I don't know which page it is, but it's in the attachment to your agenda. It's a list of OFIs. There's one that has strike-through language and one at the bottom of the page that both have something to do with the ETJ, zoning, and the PDO. You heard earlier that the PDO project, the update to PDO is to bring it into conformance with state law. That's the 160D provisions. That's true. The county's doing that. All the jurisdictions in Moore County have to do that. But at the same time, there's initiatives by some jurisdictions to tweak the PDO to either promote or discourage growth. If this is about changing the PDO and zoning to encourage growth, I'm going to be in very strong opposition. Thank you.
Could you leave that behind?
Yes.
Thank you.
I found the item that he's referring to.
What? Yeah, leave it to the clerk and we'll get copies. Thank you. Okay. Are there any other people who'd like to comment? Yes, please come forward and identify yourself.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, council members. My name is Debbie Layler. I live at 80 Azalea Road. I would like to return to Mr. Morgan's original comments about the racetrack and how well it has done. I think we all remember not too terribly long ago, a lot of those stables were sitting empty. Unfortunately, you forgot to mention Mr. Scotty Freeman, who is the track superintendent, who I believe is responsible or held to be responsible for improving the track quality so much that the speed of the horses racing on it has improved, allowing us to have Triple Crown winners and multi-million-dollar horses. So hats off to Mr. Scotty Freeman. I also would like to strongly object to the fact that y'all voted on all of these temporary amendments, one after the other, without taking comments after each of them to allow residents of the downtown area to come up and speak their piece. I think that was unfortunate because now you voted. If you agree with anything I'm going to say, you're going to have to go back and amend it. Off-street parking for all these special events, adequate. I believe that the police department has ruled that if more than 50% of a car is on the road, so less than 50% is on the pine straw, that's illegal. He's obstructing traffic. This comes down to a continuing refrain through all of this. Who's going to enforce everything that you all just approved? And I know you talked about having a gentleman to come and patrol the streets and give $50 parking tickets in the downtown area for more than 3-hour parking. But what about along the residential streets for people who are obstructing traffic and making it rendering roads one lane so that fire engines and ambulances can't get through. Pinehurst has never had that kind of protection during the big events that we hold downtown, Live After 5 or anything else. I think it would be a good thing to look into. I know Chief Webb is coming to the next NAC meeting to talk about security during the US Open, and I hope that he will be prepared to address this. With respect to the $50 fines, Mr. Willardson did not talk about what the penalties for non-payment might be. With respect also to the $50 fines, I think if you did a door-to-door survey of the business owners in the downtown area, you would get a very high percentage who would like to see that $50 parking ticket made permanent. In the past, we've been told that we can't do that without going to the state to get a permanent increase. Right now, the parking tickets are $5. The penalty for a non-payment is $50. But I believe that we know the police department doesn't issue tickets because for a $5 fine, it's not worth it. I can tell you, because we have business owners in town who know, parking tickets in Palm Beach, Florida right now are $60 first ticket, $100 the second. So it's not so much that there are other resorts that are not facing parking issues, it's just that they are using better enforcement and causing people to move on, not allowing dishwashers to show up at 9 in the morning and work their 8-hour shift, or caddies, or whomever else it might be. With respect to temporary permits for outdoor events, if event organizers are coming to the village for a permit, they are going to be charging their customers. This is not going to be like a Live After 5 where you can't anticipate how many people are going to be there. These people are going to be selling tickets. They will know how many people they would like to have. The village knows the square footage of the areas it has in its ownership to rent. If you go online, it takes 2 seconds to find out that there are standards for square foot per person at an open air event, 6 to 10 square feet. So the village should be able to talk to the permit applicant to see how many people are actually applying. I mean, how many tickets they intend to sell, and then you can back your way into how many people are going to be there and is it suitable or not. But in the limitations that Mr. Willardson mentioned, he didn't say anything about size limits on the crowd. It's not rocket science to figure this out, and you got to protect your downtown businesses and your residents. There are, in fact, 3 houses on 2 on Magnolia, 1 on Cherokee that don't have adequate parking. The homes use the streets to park on. You were fortunate you were able to bring up your personal situation. I've had people calling me all day saying, I'm looking at this map, what's going on? So unfortunately, now I guess the answer is I go back to them, I'll tell them, refer them to Mr. Willardson. I guess they can go by their own cones and block the spaces in front of their street, in front of their houses, sorry. I just want to reiterate, I hope you will consider making the $50 parking ticket permanent. I really want to reiterate that. Social district, it's a big one. A lot of people are going to be walking home to their short-term rentals or back to their cars, and the streets are dark in Pinehurst at night, as we all know, and just want to make sure we're going to have police on the street patrolling, making sure people get home safely. We have homeowners in the downtown area who run into guys who they're so drunk, they don't know where their friends are. They don't know where they were eating dinner. They don't know where they're staying. And that's not on the residents, should not be on the residents. And if we're going to have open container laws, which is great, I hope it'll be a big party. At the end of the night, we're really going to need some police presence down there walking the streets, not just hanging around the Village Green. And also I want to clarify, that was for the weekends, right? The 2 nights till 11 o'clock? Or was that all week? All week. All week. The noise ordinance kicks in at 10. Why wouldn't you do 10 o'clock Monday to Friday or Monday to Thursday?
Good point.
What?
2 different issues.
Well,
You can
just
have
saying.
a social district without excessive noise.
If you, true, but if you live downtown, you got people serenading, walking down the streets, going back to their houses after 10 o'clock on a weekday night, you know, I mean, it didn't even come up for discussion weekday or weeknight. Also, I think it's great that you sent out these notices to meet with the village business owners. I think the meeting is set for like the end of the month, like 3 or 4 weeks away, well after all these ordinances have been discussed and adopted. and they were not included in the discussion tonight. I think it's kind of too bad. I mean, and I don't think you should rely on the business organization downtown. I think not everybody participates in it, and I know Mr. Willitson did a good job getting emails out to pretty much everybody, but you need to be more aggressive about it. You're going to lose businesses, and especially with the parking. Parking's a big deal, continues to be a big deal. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you for your input. Okay, is there anybody else who'd like to speak up? One more gentleman.
Thank you. John Webster, 140 Mackenzie Road West. I just want to pick up on the discussion on water that we heard before. And I would really like to ask you to be our advocates for Pinehurst vis-a-vis the county on what's going to be happening here. Because if the numbers that were being thrown out are correct, Pinehurst is something like 60% of the clients of Moore County Water. Now, this $100 million really isn't to bring water to Pinehurst. Pinehurst produces enough water itself with all its wells. So it's basically, this is water for, I think, around 7 lakes, which kind of surprises me. They have 7 lakes, why we have to take water to them. But anyway, I'm assuming that's correct. But basically, Pinehurst residents are going to pay for this. So we're effectively subsidizing other parts of the county to produce water and sewer. Now, I understand Mr. Pacherno wants to bring sewer to where he lives, but it seems a bit unfair on the Pinehurst residents. So anyway, my request is that you pay attention to this, you go to the county meetings, you advocate for council, for Pinehurst residents who are going to face, at a minimum, a doubling of our rates and constant prices over the next 10 years. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any other comments? Anybody other? No new thoughts? Okay. Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn the regular meeting.
Second.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Let's adjourn for 10 minutes. We'll regather at about 5 to 7.